Support for this podcast comes from St. Alphonsus Sports Medicine, offering services for sports injury and recovery, with physicians and athletic trainers who provide treatment for fractures, dislocations, sprains, strains, and other sports-related issues. More information on services at stalphonsus.org. So you can't see this, but hopefully you can hear it. Behind every Boise State Public Radio podcast is a team working hard to bring you stories that matter. So if you value podcasts like this one, please support them. Hit donate at boisestatepublicradio.org. Thanks.
Good morning. It's Wednesday, April 15th. Happy Tax Day. This is The Connector, Idaho Daily News from Boise State Public Radio. I'm Troy Oppie. This morning's headlines include a hit and run of a juvenile in Mountain Home on Tuesday, Albertsons stock falling on a soft earnings forecast, and Boise State's interim president will take a full-time presidential job at a different university. But we start this morning with water. There are rain showers in the forecast again today and cooler temperatures expected to bring snow to higher elevations, but the Department of Water Resources on Monday issued a statewide emergency drought declaration for all 44 Idaho counties. That comes as Lucky Peak, Arrow Rock, and Anderson Ranch reservoir levels in the Boise system are above average. Today and tomorrow, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is planning a water release into the Boise River in order to manage flood risk. Reservoir regulator Grant Bell with the Corps says the Boise River flow may change in the next 48 hours.
Water is potentially moving cold and fast, but this won't necessarily equate to water going up onto the Greenbelt or any other areas.
He says precipitation in the Boise Basin has been healthy, 98% of median for the year, which runs from October to September.
However, due to the warm temperatures, snowpack is currently only 62% of median. So while we did get a couple good storms over the winter and in March, most of that primarily fell as rain instead of snow.
Bill says that's good for the water supply and irrigation, but warmer temperatures means the snowpack has run off sooner this year than previous seasons, and that could lead to soil dryness. This winter was the second warmest in Idaho in 130 years, according to the State Department of Water Resources. Despite those reservoir levels, the city of Caldwell is warning residents irrigation flows may be reduced this year with lower than usual pressure and an early end to the irrigation season possible. The city is asking residents to follow an even-odd watering schedule this summer, where watering days correspond to your residential address. Deep watering every 2 to 3 days will promote strong roots and improve drought tolerance, according to the city. Police in Mountain Home have released descriptions of 2 possible suspect vehicles in a reported hit and run that happened yesterday about 7:30 a.m. on American Legion Boulevard. Police say a juvenile was crossing the street when a vehicle traveling in the far left lane failed to stop and struck the child before leaving the scene. The child was transported by a guardian for local medical care. Officers say either a black SUV or a blue passenger car are vehicles of interest. They've asked anyone with information or who witnessed the accident to call Mountain Home Police at 208-599-4030. Today might not be great boating weather, but that season is upon us. Idaho's Department of Agriculture has opened its boat inspection stations for this season. These are where boaters are required to stop for inspection when traveling to ensure invasive species like zebra or quagga mussels are not being brought to Idaho from infected waterways elsewhere. Any watercraft coming to Idaho from out of state must have a decontamination sticker from an inspection station before launching in Idaho waters. Boise State University's interim president Jeremiah Shin will depart BSU to take the president's office at the University of Montana starting July 1st. Shin announced Tuesday he'd accepted Montana's offer. The Idaho State Board of Education says it, meanwhile, is moving forward on schedule with the resumed search for Boise State's next president, which it had to pause last fall because it could not meet the required number of finalists willing to be named publicly. Lawmakers this session changed that rule to require only a single public finalist. The State Board's search committee and stakeholder groups plan to hold interviews with semifinalists in the next several weeks, according to a news release. Today is the deadline to file your 2025 taxes. Need extra time? Here's Julie Luquetta with more.
Renee Iman from the Idaho Tax Commission says those who can't file in time but pay a portion of their state taxes by today instead can get an automatic 6 months extension.
And to qualify, you either need to pay 80% of the estimated tax you owe for 2025 or 100% of the total tax reported on your 2024 income tax return if you filed a return. And to help you figure that out, you can use Form 51 on our website. There's a worksheet.
This is an extension to file, not to pay.
Which means you'll owe 6% interest on any tax that's due after April 15th, but you won't be charged a late filing penalty.
For federal returns, taxpayers have to pay all or a portion of their estimated income taxes today as well and file a 4868 form to request the automatic extension. Active military members and civilians living outside the U.S. are given a 2-month extension, while taxpayers in combat zones and certain disaster areas also qualify for more time. People granted a state or federal extension will have until October 15th to file. Julie Luqueta, Boise State Public Radio News.
And if you're ready to scoot across the finish line right at the last minute with your tax return this year, a reminder that it does need to be postmarked by today to be considered on time. The Idaho Tax Commission is hosting a drive-through drop-off all day, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Tax Commission office on the Chinden State Campus. That's between Cloverdale and 5 Mile in West Boise. Investors sold off Albertsons stock yesterday as the company updated its sales forecasts short of Wall Street expectations. The Boise-based grocer now predicts flat to 1% sales growth for its current fiscal year. That's about 0.5% below previous expectations. Stock was down 3.6% yesterday. Traders were unmoved by Albertsons also announcing an increase to its common stock dividend by 13%. That's up to 68 cents a share. Separately, Albertsons also announced it has reached a $774 million settlement framework to satisfy claims brought against the company by state, local, and tribal governments related to the opioid crisis. The company did not release details of its proposal, which would need approval from plaintiffs and courts overseeing the litigation. But Albertsons, which admits no wrongdoing, says the settlement is a good deal for all parties. Organizers of the effort to put medical marijuana use on the ballot in Idaho this November say they're close to the 100,000 signature threshold. Citizen initiatives require about 71,000 verified signatures, including specific minimums from certain geographic areas of the state in order to qualify for the ballot. The proposal would legalize medical use of pot in Idaho, joining all neighboring states except Wyoming in some legal use of the drug. Lawmakers in the waning days of the legislative session passed a concurrent resolution urging citizens to reject that effort, but the legislation has no legal effect. The deadline for the required number of signatures to reach the ballot is April 30th. 3 people were injured last August 31st at the Shoshone Ice Caves when a suspended portion of the decades-old walkway inside collapsed. Public access to the caves has been closed since, and the attraction operator says they'll have to remain closed this summer too, as he works to fund nearly $1 million project to replace the entire walkway. Shane Wallace bought the cave tourist operation 6 years ago.
We're taking out the suspension and going with a stabilized wall off of the side. We're going with a higher grade steel and fabrication, a lot of fail safes, and longevity is our number one goal there.
The caves are a private business running on state-owned land. Wallace says he has to fundraise through advertising sponsorships and tour packages. He hopes to raise about $750,000 and get construction going later this year to reopen the cave tours by next summer. The gift shop and museum on Highway 75 north of Shoshone remain open to visitors this summer. And that is your connector for this Wednesday, April 15th. I'm Troy Oppie. I'll be back with you again tomorrow. To stay in touch with the news between now and then, you can download the free Boise State Public Radio app for your smartphone or just visit our website, boisestatepublicradio.org. And if some of those early spring temperatures we enjoyed got you anxious about planting in the garden, you may want to note the potential for freezing temperatures over several mornings through the rest of this week. Make it a great day.
You know, every day on Up First, NPR's Golden Globe-nominated morning news podcast, we bring you 3 essential stories. At the heart of each story are questions. What really happened? What really mattered? What happens next? At NPR, we stand for your right to be curious and to follow the facts. Follow Up First wherever you get your podcasts and start your day knowing what matters and why.